Hi everyone, it's SPL, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about what I think is one of the strongest, if not the strongest, early league support builds for a duo context, and that is Guardian Aurabot. Now, you might have come to my channel or been aware of me from the 5-hour duo run for 2 stones that Havoc and I did earlier this league. If so, this is like the extended discussion video about that build within the context of next league, so 3.25. For anyone else who's looking for a super strong, low investment build that they can play with a friend, that you don't have to sink hundreds of divines into to feel great, that you just want to like get set up, you want to blast tier 16s, you want to have a good time, this is a great option for you. If you're not aware of me, I am the team manager for Team Focus. I play a lot of support builds, a lot of party play in early league racing contexts and low investment contexts. So that's where I'm coming from when designing this character. I want a build which is really strong and doesn't rely on extremely high-end items to perform well. So why Guardian? Step one, it's about early power. Guardian has the highest power out of any of the support options within the first, let's say, 8 to 10 hours before you have absolutely all of the uniques, before you get cluster jewels, before you have really nice rare gear. Like, just at base, Guardian is going to give you the best value when you're comparing against, say, Scion, when you're comparing against Champion. I'm talking specifically in a duo context here. And the main reason for that is this little node right here. It's Unwavering Crusade. This effectively gives you 3 additional 50% auras. They're not quite as strong as the auras you're able to equip on your character, but that's okay. We don't need full character strength auras on this character, because we've got all of the defensive layering to back it up, and you are still providing enough damage through Unwavering Crusade. Furthermore, Guardian provides extreme defensive layering. We have Harmony of Purpose. This is giving +5 max res. You can see here I've personally got 85 all elemental resistances, and that's from Val impurities or just purities, so like Purity of Fire, etc. So your carry is going to have 90 all elemental resistances. So they're going to be hard chilling. Also, links are extremely potent. We're right next to the best link node on the tree, which is Empowered Bond, so that's great as well. A minor additional discussion point is the leveling part. I'll talk about that more later. Leveling for this build is really smooth. You're just going to be playing classic Armor Creamer Templar, like the racing setup. You're going to have the most character power out of any of the spots for a campaign perspective, which is great. So what do you want to be doing on this build? This build is great for blasting tier 16 content, getting your first 4 watchstones. It is tier 17 viable, but with a slight caveat that I personally haven't played this build in tier 17 at higher investment. But speaking of higher investment, it's just not really required. Whereas if you're thinking of like Scion builds, you have to invest a lot into getting like low life and CI versions. This build, you're just staying life the whole way. It's turned on by like only a few unique items. Hell, I've killed 4 stones, so Eater Exarch, Maven, Uber Elder on this build, with like very few of the required uniques or like optimal uniques. So yeah, this build just really does it all in that league start context. And you don't have to keep investing and investing in it. It's going to be a really strong option for you within the first like weekend, within the first week. If you're just happy having a strong enough build, then you don't need to invest in your character beyond what this build gives you, right? There is an option, however, to invest into it more. You can turn this into like a CI build. You can equip some of those like really nice rare items that we're talking about. It will be less powerful than a Scion. So what I would recommend in that case, if you really wanted to invest more time and more currency, and let's say if you wanted to play support for a month with a carry, I would still start this build. And the reason for starting this build is for the first, let's say half a week, for the first week, at least until you get your 4 Watchstones, you're starting to blast tier 16s, you're doing your breaches, your 5 ways, I forgot the name of the content, you're starting to like stockpile currency. This build gives you an avenue to invest into your carry. So you can get your Headhunter, you can get your Mageblood, you can get your like really nice bow or wand or whatever it is for your carry, right? This build is going to be extremely viable on a lower investment. Then when you're ready to invest in the Aurabot more, what you can do is re-roll a Scion. So then you get your carry to boost you through campaign. They'll like help you get through all the progression. You can have Twink leveling gear at that point, and then that process is going to be a lot smoother. And then you can like hyper invest into your support character at that point. So that's what I would recommend if you wanted to like really invest into your support character, and I know a lot of people do, and there are a lot of resources about Trade League duo Scion characters. I'm not going to go into that in this video. This is just to demonstrate the initial Guardian builds. So for your 4-stone or first weekend or first week build, this is what we're talking about. This is around 90, level 90. You'll see here quest points 23. That's because I suggest helping Alira. With the new changes, it's costing us 1 point for 15 all-res. It's going to make gearing in campaign trivial. It's going to make gearing entering maps completely trivial. The 1 point trade-off is just totally worth it. When you're looking at party play, everyone else is also going to be helping Alira, which makes routing actually easier. The movement speed from Creighton is something I've seen people potentially recommend. I don't think it is as important as people might think it is, because of the increased pickup range that has been suggested or spoiled for us from the next patch, right? So movement speed used to be very important on support characters, because every time you went to loot an item, you'd have to go so close to the item and there'd be a lot of micro movements. So the movement speed stat would give you a lot more quality of life. However, in, we'll call it New World Order of increased pickup range, you're now going to be more realistically leaping towards items, and when you're in a good enough range, the item will just be able to be picked up. So that's why you've seen that I've kept a lot of the initial attack speed investment that you're expecting to see on Templars in this build. So that's going to be sort of your thing that's going to help you loot, as well as the mobility that helps you keep up with a higher pace of carry play during your like blasting moments in tier 16 mapping. So this is the build. It's pretty straightforward, right? So this is like the typical Templar structure up here. We're hitting the aura nodes, 1, 2, 3, 4 aura clusters. I've got Eldritch Battery here, and I'll talk about March of the Legion in a moment. We're hitting Suppress Cap with these 3 Suppress Wheels, and you've seen I've taken a couple of Suppress points here. This is just to guarantee Suppress Cap. And you get this for free. So this build gets really tanky. So we're looking at 50 block, 50-25 block, 20k armor, 5k evasion, sitting at around 3k life, but with full suppress cap, 85 all res. You should be extremely comfortable in this setup. This is the tree that I would expect for you to have, yeah, around level 90, around when you're like getting your 4 stones done. In terms of items, you can see it's all of the traditional support items, pretty much. So we've got Matua Tupuna, Alpha's Howl, Victoria's Influence, Jinx Juju. That's all the very standard stuff, giving you aura effect, or reservation efficiency, or aura levels and stuff like that. The nuance here for Guardian specifically is you want Soulbound. So Soulbound does 2 things. First of all, the link duration and cast speed is really nice QOL. Second, it kind of sucks if your carry dies and you die. Like, your carry shouldn't die. It very often only carry deaths if your carry is playing too recklessly or if you're not keeping up. And that's the other reason why I really, really like attack speed on this build, because it's critical that you stay within aura range of your carry. Furthermore, that's why we have Brightbeak. I'll talk about that again in a second. But if your carry does die, you don't want to lose XP for that. And that might sound a bit like a weird thing to say, but I found for other people playing with Lynx, a lot of the feedback that I've gotten is like, it feels shit when your carry dies and you lose XP. Because it's like, you shouldn't be punished necessarily for someone else's actions, right? And you want to be like holding on to your XP, you want to be gaining character levels, and like that's just more fun, right? But also gives like more character power. So we've got Soulbound here, and of course with Soulbound we have Center of Benevolence. So Center allows you to apply your non-unique utility flasks to linked targets. Now how does this work? You need to link a target first, and then press the flasks. Now, I'm not recommending you to press flasks. I think auto-flasking should be completely viable. I've just suggested the elemental flasks here. What you want to do is have prefixes like reduce flask charges used, flask charges gained when hit, things like that. Anything that like helps you with flask sustain. But these will really permanently uptime once you're in the like the cruise mode of tier 16 mapping. So like, let's say you're doing a breach strategy, you've got your auto flasks on, as long as you're linking your target, they're going to be applied these flask effects. Now I think this is outdated information in PoB, right? It's not +5 to maximum res anymore. Actually, no, scrap that. It's definitely +5 to max res. Anyway, point being, your carry is going to get res capped at 90 max res with these flasks. So they're going to be like really comfortable, and you will too. The fourth flask here, this is a flex slot. What I would like to use personally, I've got 3 ideas. Granite flask, because you're using determination and molten shell, but not grace at this point in the build. Also means your carry doesn't have to run a granite flask. Amethyst flask, your chaos res is a little bit hard to get on this character. It shouldn't really matter, but yeah, chaos res, nice to shore up with on a flask slot. Or finally, onslaught. And the reason why I suggest onslaught over movement speed is, as I said before, we're using leap slam as the priority form of mobility, and that's just going to be more functional than movement speed for our character. It also potentially allows the carry to drop onslaught investment. So those are the 3 options I'd suggest for Flask 4. Flask 5, obviously we're a life build, you definitely want a life flask, and you do need CB immunity. So I suggest like an instant life flask, whatever your preference is, if it's just pure instant on low life, or like a semi-instant, semi-overtime flask, but some form of instant with corrupted blood and bleed immunity. That needs to be your 5th flask slot here. So we've spoken about the uniques, other than Brightbeak and March of the Legion. So Brightbeak is, in my opinion, the best, like no competition, the best weapon that you can equip on almost any support for most contexts in the game. And the reason for that is it gives you so much mobility, and the ability to keep up with your carry, to make sure they're in aura range, to make sure you're providing them the offensive and defensive layers, so that you can like go back and loot, or go somewhere else and then come back to your carry. It just gives you much more flexibility with how you're actually playing the maps, yeah? So a lot of people recommend Sign of the Sin Eater, so I'm just going to address that now. Sign of the Sin Eater, when you compare the smite that gives you, is not actually that much better than just a Val Smite in a Val Caress, for example. So that's worth noting. Furthermore, it has really low attack speed. I think I have one somewhere here. Nope, I'm just going to look it up. Sign of the Sin Eater. So we're comparing a 1.25 base attack speed item. And we can actually just look at our leap slam here real quick. So with Brightbeak equipped, we have 3.7 attacks per second. With Sign of the Sin Eater, yeah, it's 3.6. So we're losing like a reasonably considerable amount of attack speed here. 3.7 to... Sorry, 3.7 to 2.81. Yeah, what's that, like around 1 attack per second lost? That's kind of a lot. So yeah, for mapping, absolutely want to use Brightbeak. If you're doing specifically bossing, or say for your 3-stone, 4-stone fights, I could see a world where you would equip Sign of the Sin Eater. So I don't think it's necessarily wrong to do so. The value of this smite is really nice. However, you are probably using the Fire and Lightning res on this Brightbeak to res cap, so you'll need to solve that on your ring, which means like potentially dropping some Chaos res, so that's something that you need to be conscious of if you make that decision. And it does give you a little bit less mobility in those bossing contexts as well. So it's just like a couple of caveats to be aware of if you want to equip a Sign of the Sin Eater, but I absolutely do not recommend this from a mapping perspective. Okay, cool. So I guess this is the final big thing to talk about in terms of the new support changes. So with the loss of Divine Blessing support gem, we now have to use March of the Legion to get Divine Blessing. And I'm not too sure about the price or the accessibility of this item in Trade League in the first day. It's probably going to be fine. Most of these items should be fairly accessible. If you have to save up a little bit of money for a March of the Legion, it's absolutely worth it. This is what's going to essentially allow you to run the full Aura suite that I have prepared for this build. So March of the Legion for this build, super important. We're going to put our haste in there, and then it's going to become a super juice haste for the whole party. I haven't specifically spoken about Valkyries. I think it should be fairly straightforward, logical, but I'll go over it briefly. Val, impurity of lightning, ice, and fire, or rather the regular purities, they get increased max res thresholds at level 23. So normally you have to have them at level 21 inside something like a +2 gloves or an Alpha's Howl or a crafted rare +2 helmet to get that effect. If you use the Val gems, you only need them at level, 18 or something? So it's way more accessible for a League start context. Like, you don't even have to buy the leveled up gems straight away. You can potentially just buy the Val impurities as they come online on the market. People will be selling them for super cheap, like less than 1C each. And you can level them up to level 18. It'll be really quick, and you get super high value out of these gloves. You can also chuck in your Val haste in here before you get March of the Legion. You can chuck in your Val smite either before or after that as well. This item just gives you a lot of power for the slot, yeah? Okay, cool. So that's just talking about like how I like to put together unique items for the builds. Then we'll go over skills really quickly. So triple Val impurities plus smite in the gloves. In the chests, so this is Victario's influence, we've got precision, arrogance, smite. Obviously these auras are going to be supported by generosity from the chest, yeah. Val haste plus inspiration in the boots, fairly straightforward. We've got a clarity, vitality, and determination for your helmet, so that's getting the benefit of the +2 aura levels from Alpha's Howl, and then we just have finally a flame link. Now you've noticed here that I've put Enlighten, and this is only for approximating the final cost of Flame Link, because POB hasn't yet updated the Inspiration gem. So Inspiration here, it has a 120 cost reservation multiplier, but it has a 34% reduced mana cost. It should say less mana cost. So I did a bit of manual calculation, and at level 1, Inspiration like roughly amounts to a 90% multiplier on Flame Link. So that's why I've got Enlighten level 3 here, so that's a 92% multiplier. Obviously, this Inspiration, when you get more levels on it, it's going to become more efficient. I just wanted to make sure that we could sustain Flame Link mana cost at all Inspiration gem levels. Then we've got Leap Slam, faster attacks, momentum. Really, really, really important to have this 3 linked. I know a lot of people just do Leap Slam, faster attacks. Get your momentum in there. It's just going to give you a little bit more attack speed. I don't think I need to rehash over this like mobility is king concept, yeah. Frostblink, for obvious reasons. Leap Slam already does the major gap closing, but Frostblink is animation cancelling as well. Note for your Searing Exarch boss fight, you want to drop Frostblink and replace it with Flame Dash. So that gives you a little bit more control in the ball phase, yeah. Molten Shell costs 1 damage taken, super straightforward. And then we have some optional gems here. So Enduring Cry was changed. I think it is still really strong. As well, for one, by default, it also gives the charges to allies, and endurance charges on next patch are going to give not only PDR but also elemental damage reduction. So you're going to be like 90 all rares, suppress cap, and endurance charge LEDR on top of that. It is a little bit clunky in terms of Warcry speed though, so that's something you're going to have to figure out when's an appropriate time to press it. If you have time to press it during during maps, I don't really think you do. It's going to be more like when you get to the map boss, you press it just for a little bit of extra defensive layering there. If you're fighting like a Legion general, if you're fighting your 3-4 stone fights, things like that, where you have time to get locked into Enduring Cry animation. Vile Rejuve Totem, again, is like a really, really strong defensive layer that people overlook for support builds. Normally, I wouldn't use it in a racing context in, say, like a group self-found or private league environment. However, for trade league, if you have like a trader, if you have a little bit of downtime, say like if your carry's taking a break and you're going to do trades or whatever, just pick one up, chuck it in your gear, start leveling it. And again, it's a really strong defensive layer for when you're in more like stand-still fight situations. Cool, so that's all of the gems, items, and tree for the like rough endgame like 4-stone setup. I want to then talk about leveling and the support swap. So in this POB, I've got some trees for you. So Armor Creamer trees, support trees, and endgame trees. I'll just flick through these really quickly. This is just classic Armor Creamer setup. We're going to come out of the gates, rush Fire Mastery. Unfortunately, we did lose Dark Arts, and that's like a bit sad, but we're going to compensate by taking Spiritual Command here for mobility. And then immediately after Spiritual Command, rushing to Spiritual Aid. Notice that I've skipped Purity of Flesh here, and that's because these Life and ES nodes will be sufficient defensive layering so that we can get up to this increased minion attack speed, and then finally Spiritual Aid for minion damage. This is like roughly where you want to be at for your Armor Creamer swap, so this is level 28. You're going to have Runebinder, you're going to have Ellie Overload, and this is just going to feel like really, really powerful. This is like classic just character power, get some nice reservation efficiency in here, and then we're going to fill out some of these like little 2-pointers that give us a lot more character power, yeah? When we get into the support trees, so just coming back here, this is sort of like the maximum character power that you're going to get during the campaign. And the reason for that is when you're playing a support, obviously you're going to need to use regret orbs and like swap to your support setup at some point, right? So I've got a whole video on the Team Focus YouTube channel that I'll link in the description here about how to swap to support. So going from like a solo play in campaign to being a support player, and that usually happens around either Blood Aqueducts or at the end of the campaign, especially for this character because you have so much character power. Like this is 48 points of character power that is essentially a traditional racing setup, right? And you're playing Armor Creamer, which is the strongest leveling spell build. I didn't mention it, but it should be fairly obvious we're going Radiant Crusade for first Ascendancy, so we can pick up Unwavering Crusade second. This guy, I call him the Duda. I don't know how else to refer to it. This Sentinel of Radiance is kind of mid in my opinion. Like, you can chuck it down on boss fights. I know a lot of people go wild for this for leveling, but like just leap slamming around and using Armor Brand is going to feel a lot smoother, in my opinion. Anyway, let's move on. Now, this is what your tree is going to look like just before you respec in BA, right? So this is around like level 52. This doesn't account accurately for the skill points that you will be acquiring. But yeah, so basically we're just trying to build out this support framework here. We're going to take a little bit of mana reservation efficiency and righteous decree, which is like, it's a bit weird nodes, but I'll talk about those later. But these are just going to make like your mana super comfy. After picking up, I think, these 3 clusters, you should absolutely be able to equip Anger plus Haste, so not needing Herald of Thunder anymore. And then you'll just be like hard chilling from there. Why is this double tapping? So weird. Sorry about that. Then we've got Tree 10, which is your BA respec. So here what you can do, this is a really cool functionality. I've done this the wrong way around. Let's go here, let's go here. So this is what I do when I'm doing a support swap. So I will do a compare function in POB, where I'll take my tree before the respec here on the left, and my tree after the respec here on the right. And this is going to show me all of the nodes in red. These are the nodes that I'm going to take off when I respec. And this is, I think, a 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This is a 14-point respec, yeah? And you will have those 14 points by the time you're doing the swap in Blood Aqueduct. So that is the earliest point to swap. And those 14 points come from all of the quests. Because the Golden Hand was added to a quest that's a mandatory Act 2 quest for a skill point, that's going to give you an additional 2 quest points. So normally we'd plan around 12 respec points for BA, but we can now plan around 14. So yeah, just with this view, you can see what points to take off when you're doing a respec. And then the green points, this is the points where you like want to start adding some, yeah? And then that's just going to be working towards this tree 11 here, which is your after BA respec. So what's important here, and you'll notice this is a little bit more points than some of the previous trees, and I'll talk about the skills later, but I couldn't really find a perfect way to account for having enough reservation efficiency to fit everything in a world where there's no Divine Blessing support gem. So what you're going to have to do is just sort of like turn off haste for a little bit and then turn it on when you get enough reservation efficiency. So like when you click charisma and leadership from this right side of the tree, okay? Okay, so we've got a respec after BA, and then we've got map enter. So map enter is pretty much just the BA respec, and then we're adding on empowered bond, yeah? From here, I have another respec. Number 13. And so this one is just going to show you all of the additional points that you can change, and this will optimize your tree even further. And so you want to be doing these respecs at some point in maps, just whenever you have the extra points. So like these 2 intelligence nodes, these are some of the easier points to respec because you can just chuck 1 intelligence up here and then take them off. I do want to note at this point, however, that we have access to 30 strength and dex up here that you may need to click during campaign. You want to be taking a dex amulet from the Act 3 quest reward in Solaris, and then a heavy belt can be very helpful as well to cover your strength requirements. But it is by no means a failure if you need to click one or both of these nodes. Just use them flexibly as you need them, yeah? So we're going to take these off. We're going to take off Holy Dominion. So Holy Dominion we keep into maps because 12 res is 12 res. Like 2 points for 12 res is not bad nodes, yeah? But once you have strong enough gear, if you have enough aura effect for your purities, once you feel comfortable, you can drop these nodes. The early respec here, this is taking off elemental damage, getting some life and strength, just going through the efficient pathing. And then Righteous Decree. Righteous Decree I've taken because the additional mana and reduced cost allows us to reserve a slightly higher level clarity and get enough mana recovery. So on this map, Enter Tree, we can sustain what's it called? We can sustain Flame Link. So I'll just demonstrate that really quickly now. So we've got map enter. We've got, let's say it's, actually, I think I did this on like no gear. No gear. So we've got no gear, we've got support at BA, and you can see here we've got 2% mana, and our Flame Link cost is 30, and just about 30 mana regen at level 64. So with Righteous Decree, this is like just covering all of our bases for being able to play the game, which is like where we want to be. So these you'll have to keep for quite a while until you get more aura effect that juices up your clarity aura effect to a point where you can comfortably sustain Flame Link. I don't have an exact breakpoint for when that is. I trust you to figure it out. Okay, cool. So then, yeah, after map enter, we've got these respecs. I've spoken about those. And then we've got the 4-stone tree, basically, that I was showing off earlier. Essentially, the additional points is like all this right side pathing. I know it looks like a lot longer way to get up to Eldritch Battery than to, like, say, just take this top path, which is what I used to do on Templar support specifically. The reason for that is the change in the blessing support. So if you need March of the Legion, and if you don't have access to it immediately, you don't really need Eldritch Battery. So we're just surviving completely fine on a mana build. It's only when you get the boots that you absolutely need Eldritch Battery. So you can take your time walking along the outside here, and this is giving you a much better endgame path because you have access to Inveterate for suppression. These are stronger life nodes, Blood Drinker. I guess they're like kind of same as Crawl Prep. Anyway, these are strong life nodes. Getting the extra decks along this side gives us more decks for suppression on Magebane. And like it just sort of like works better. Anyway, so yeah, you want to be like taking this outside pathing with the ability to click Eldritch Battery if or when you get the boots. And then you want to prioritize after that Influence, and then you can take Written in Blood. After that, I'd probably go for some suppression nodes, and then you can fill out life. This is sort of like dealer's choice, whatever you feel like you need next, yeah? So that's the trees. I've gone over the skills, the trees, the items. What I haven't spoken about is some potential, like, more higher investment ideas for the character, yeah? So I know I said, like, you don't need to invest higher into this build, but just because you don't need to doesn't mean you can't, right? It's like, let's say you don't feel like you have the time to level a Scion, or you just want to play the build for like another week and then you want to respec it to another Templar build or something like that, right? You can invest more into it. And this is like a rough framework for how I would think about it. So we're going down here, picking up Champion of the Cause. We're using one Cluster Jewel with 25% increased effect, and then Anointing Leader of the Pack. We're also dropping Eldritch Battery because the aim is to fully sustain permanent auras on all of our auras, yeah? But then, yeah, it's just like level 94, same kind of defensive layering. We've got 100% suppress. We're looking at 50-25 block. You'll see we've jumped up to 30k evasion. That's because we're adding Grace into the build. So what are the major changes here? It's not needing to do blessing support anymore, and we're adding haste and grace to the build full time. And that's just gonna like feel a lot nicer from a QL perspective. So you'll see here, all of the auras are essentially the same. We're using an Enlighten on our purities, and you've seen also this like level 21 purity requirement that I spoke about before. These are now going into the helmet for +2 aura levels. The chest has been swapped out for a rare chest. I'll show you that in a moment. And again, we're using like Enlighten 3 to reserve all of these auras. We're adding a super juiced vitality into the build as well, so like that'll feel really nice. You can see here 2.7k life regen. We need to put generosity support back onto to this setup. The rest is like all kind of same though, like what you would expect. Then items wise, there's been a couple of changes. So this is like a fairly standard entry level rare Aurabot chest. So elevated non-curse aura effect, elevated percent intelligence for the +1 intelligence gems. That gives you an extra level of your enlighten support in the chest. You could go for an enlighten 4 instead of an awakener's orb for this item. Just whatever's the cheapest or whatever you feel like investing in at the time. You can also craft this item to be a lot higher end. So for example, slapping on some energy shield rolls on the prefixes. If you're working towards transitioning from a Guardian to a Scion, you can still make these upgrades to your Guardian, and then once you hit enough gear threshold to make your Scion feel great, then you can swap over to the Scion. We're looking at Hands of Freesia gloves. Super powerful item. We don't know how rare they're going to be, so I didn't really want to plan around them for like the entry, or like not really entry level, but you know, for the first couple of days, first week. Super powerful item. It's just giving you a bunch of aura effect, basically. Really important that you need to maintain your link uptime. Bubonic Trails, classic, bit of aura, reservation efficiency, bit of move speed, generic Kurgle's Gaze. We're keeping like the Soulbound Censure. I'm even just keeping Brightbeak in this setup because personally I love the mobility of it. If you're doing slower content, you can look at doing like the Darkseer. Is probably the best option here. Note though, I've dropped all of this attack speed investment from the build. So if you see here, let's look at our Leap Slam. Even with a Brightbeak, we're still at like 2.6. So if we drop to, well, if you drop down even more, this is just going to start feeling bad. The reason why this feels better is we've got like better haste juicing and whatever from aura effect. Items wise, yeah, you just need that one cluster jewel, and then this is a magic Bisque jewel for the boots, so you get a little bit of movement speed. Otherwise, it's all like fairly same stuff, but again, it's like the investment steps that you can put into your character as you're working towards Scion. You could even take this as a framework and look to super juice it. You can make it CI. You can do whatever you want with this build, really. I'm just here to like give you something to start off with. Yeah. What else can you get out of this POB? I've got a note section here. This will give you everything that you need to know for campaign. Filters I'll speak about very briefly. You probably should be using group leveling filters. You can find these on my profile. I'm in the process of updating these and renaming them to like Team Focus Dash rather than SPL. Right now I've done the caster group ones and caster solo. So for this build, you want to be using Team Focus Caster Group. If you're playing with like a Bow or Venom Gyre carry, you've got like SPL Venom. This will be renamed to Team Focus Venom or Venom Gyre. And SPL Bows, this will be renamed to Team Focus Bows. You're also welcome to use my filters for mapping as well. So I've got Team Focus 1 map enter, and then you just follow the number progression here. So there's going to be like 2 reds enter, 3 mid game, and 4 is juiced. Yeah, there you go. So those are my like 4 tiers of early racing, like early league mapping filters. You're welcome to take all of these filters, customize them to how you like. But I recommend, especially if you don't have the time or if you don't have the knowledge specifically about group play, especially for the campaign part, highly recommend using my filters. Okay, so this is filters. Then we've got when to do the support swap. So I spoke about this briefly before, you know, just play the build solo until at least BA if you're playing with extra people who can do campaign while You and the carry do your thing in BA. If you can't, then just stay solo until third lab. Like, this character has plenty of character power. You're going to blast through the campaign with your carry, and you're each going to be able to do separate tasks. You're going to complete all of the tasks up until just before Act 10 Katava, then go into lab together, and then do the swap there. So we're talking about the third lab during campaign. And then you'll do Katava. So Helpalira, I already spoke about. If you're not using regexes for like highlighting items from vendors during campaign, you can copy this and then put it in their like search bar, and that's going to highlight certain things. And then yeah, this part below here is just like a general layout of the things you need during campaign. So like, you want a triple blue, but a double blue is okay. And these are the gems and where to buy them and so on. This is all just like classic armor brand cremation leveling. If you're familiar with that, then this is going to feel great. If you're not, I highly recommend like doing a little bit of Act 1, a little bit of Act 2 practice if you have time, just to get a feel for how the build plays out. We've got notes, we've got items, skills. I think that's it for my very brief discussion over this build. I think this build can be really strong. It's going to carry you for the first half a week on, you know, not too much thinking. And if you need any advice or any ideas about what to do with the character, you guys are probably aware that I play with Havoc. A teammate of ours, ADT, will be playing this build with Havoc in a duo at league start. So I'm not going to be playing this, but my teammates are. So if you have a look at Pewee Ninja, I suspect we'll be towards the top of the ladder there. Or just type /ladder on day one. If our names aren't in the top 10, I'll be really sad. But yeah, this is the build. Feel free to post any questions you have in the comments. Really happy to help out. Cool. Thanks for watching. Good luck on League Start.